We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Krista, where does Hawaii fall on your bucket list?
I've been there and can't wait to go back. How about you?
You know, it's funny. I had no desire to go. And then when I sold my financial planning business to a guy who goes there every year, and he described how fun it was, that was back in 2009, and I still have not gone, but I really, really, really want to go.
No, you don't.
Yeah, that's right. You say you want to go, but your what you do proves otherwise. On today's show, they say when you go somewhere, talk to the locals. What should you see? What should you do? Today, we'll talk to a gentleman who has lived for a long time in Hawaii about what he would consider the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And looking for gear that experienced travelers use, you'll find our favorite curated travel helpers, from headphones to slacks and from health and fitness tools to chargers. It's all at stackingadventures.com/gear of the day or GOTD. That's our page. You'll help the show and you'll help yourself adventure better. And you won't waste your money and actually time on horrible gear that you won't even love. So, Joe, who says it?
I think you need to say it. You ready?
Yeah, let's get this show on the road.
Ready for adventure? From vacation to staycation, and from the mountains to the beach. This is the Stacking Adventures podcast.
Welcome back to the Stacking Adventures podcast. We head around the world on this show with our adventure community. Every adventure has a story, and today we're going to hear from a local, Crystal, who has lived for a long, long time in Hawaii.
I'm excited about this just because the locals tend to avoid the tourists and the tourist traps. And also, the locals, they take the best care of the newbies and the newcomers. So they like to give you the lay of the land and flex their local chops. So I'm excited.
It is true. It's funny. When you talk to a local, you're like, which of the tourist things could you stand to go to again, right? Instead of what can, billboard and road signs suck you into. So today we have a gentleman with us who we've known for a while. We know him as a military money writer. However, today he's going to be our Hawaii tour guide. Mr. Doug Norman joins us. We call him Nords. How are you, man?
Doing fine, Joe. Good to see you, Crystal. I'm looking forward to this one.
Well, us too. You've lived in Hawaii for 37 years.
Is that difficult to understand?
No, you don't look a hair over 32.
To be fair, this was the Navy's idea way back in the 1980s. But once we got here, we recognized how good this was. And after a while leaving the islands and then flying back, felt more like coming home here to the islands than it did going back to the mainland.
When we were chatting with you about this at the beginning, though, Doug, it was funny because your big travel confession, like right out of the gate, was you don't actually go to the other Hawaiian islands. And to me, like the first thing I thought was, if that feels like you live in Disney World, but you vacation at Six Flags, you know what I mean?
Ooh, ouch.
Yes, that is correct. On the other hand, when we go on travel, we've been going international. And so just getting onto the neighbor islands is something we can do. We find ourselves on the neighbor islands doing the same things that we would do on Oahu. And it's really mostly a staycation. But we'll eventually get to the point where as our granddaughter grows older, we've got a 6-year-old right now, she's in kindergarten. And as she gets older, she's going to want to go see the neighbor islands just because she wants to explore all of Hawaii. And that's what I'm looking forward is to seeing Hawaii through her eyes.
Yeah, you get to experience it all over again. Let's start here. What do people screw up when they plan a trip to Hawaii?
The biggest mistake, and we're talking about Olympic gymnasts here, so their vacation is still 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 instead of 9.8 out of 10. The biggest mistake is trying to do too much. And I get a typical person from the mainland will contact me and say, hey, I'd like to go to Hawaii. I've got 10 days, and please tell me which 3 islands I should focus on. And my answer is no, you're barely going to get through one island, and it's probably not going to be Oahu. And so dial it back and think about exactly what you want to see and do first, and then we'll tell you which island is probably best to start with.
That kind of infers then that Hawaii isn't one place. Like every island has a completely different character then. Would that be true?
Oh, absolutely. And if the islands were laid out and people tried to pick out what they wanted to do, many websites will do this for you, of course, but Kauai is known for natural beauty, as is Maui. Oahu has its own things going on. The Big Island is what people might think of as the way Hawaii used to be before the 1960s and international jets were flying all over the Pacific Ocean. And so there's a little bit of different things to see and do in each island, and each have their attractions. For example, Maui has a world-class oceanarium, one of the best aquariums I've ever seen. On the other hand, Kauai has the wettest spot on Earth up on top of a mountain, and there's a lot of natural beauty to hike around and look at in Kauai. Frankly, Kauai, to my experience, has the least crowded surf breaks of the islands, but there are a couple other islands that probably could be even less crowded than that have even less to do. And I'm referring to Molokai and Lanai. Hardly anybody goes to those 2 islands because they are not as ready for a huge influx of visitors as the 4 bigger islands. And if you're on a Big Island, there's plenty to see there with Mauna Loa, Mauna Kea, and Kilauea. Although I don't know if you have been following Kilauea's saga, but as of the time we're recording this, Kilauea is currently not just throwing a big fountain of lava in a crater, it's throwing balls of what's called tephra, which means ash and molten lava that is solidified. Balls of that about the size of volleyballs all over the national park and even into adjacent areas. So it's kind of an unpopular place to be watching the lava live now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Crystal,
then-
let it be, let's just record this. It took Doug Nordman 8 minutes and 19 seconds to reference surfing. And for people that don't know, which
That
I
is
think
kind of slow, isn't it? Yeah.
it was slow. I was expecting a surfing reference well before you actually made it, my friend.
Oh, we don't surf here. No, there's nothing to see here. Don't worry about it. No, surf breaks are
No,
way
of
too
course
small
not.
and way too busy already. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then what should I expect?
I do have favorite breaks on each island. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, what should we expect as far as island hopping? Like, if I wanted to fly into Hawaii, if I'm going to Oahu, am I going to stay on Oahu? Or like, if I wanted to quote unquote island hop, would I fly into a certain island and how am I island hopping in the first place?
I would pace yourself at no faster than 1 island a week. So if you got a 2-week vacation and you have things you want to see and do in Waikiki on Oahu, mostly would be shopping. Well, then that's what you're going to do. And you're going to take the time to explore and find all the places that attract you for whatever shopping or beach time you want. And then you're just going to keep iterating on that. And now, if you're going to spend 1 week on Waikiki and then go to a neighbor island, maybe you want to go to something that's completely different, like Hilo on the Big Island, and spend another week there. There are international flights from all over the Pacific to Honolulu, Kahului in Maui, Hilo and Kailua Kona on the Big Island. So you don't have to fly through Honolulu to get there unless you're very price sensitive or unless you place a very low value on the time you spend sitting in airports. and even getting to Kauai, there's several flights there into Lihue that you can get from international locations or from the mainland. So that used to be a big deal, flying to Oahu and figuring out connections, and not such a big deal anymore.
You did tell us in our prep work that if somebody's going for the first time, that the Big Island might be the move. That might be your first spot. How come?
Personally, I like the Big Island the best of the 4 islands, even though I've lived on Oahu for 37 years. But the Big Island, it's more mellow. You have more things to see and do. For example, You can go to a black sand beach if you want to spend your time on a unique beach. If you want to see fascinating observatories or science projects, and you can go up to the top of Mauna Kea and see the observatories up there. And when I say up, I mean at 12,000 feet of altitude. Right now, there's a blizzard warning on Mauna Kea because of the rainfall we have here, and they're expecting to get about a foot of snow or freezing rain. Yes.
Wait a minute. So I can see lava and snow on the same island. Is this like some kind of Hawaii
exactly
flex?
At the same time, but you might have to do a little driving in between. But yes, it is. Here, the other example is the Mauna Kea Snowboarding Championship, which is held, as you might imagine, only once or twice a year. But the competition involves not just a snowboarding phase up there in the morning, but a surfing phase down at the coast in the afternoon. And that's the big challenge, is picking the right surf spot and getting the good waves after you've been up on Mauna Kea snowboarding. You also do have another big social aspect over in Kailua Kona on the other side, on the western side of the Big Island. And that's a smaller version of Waikiki. There's plenty of shopping and luxury hotels and resorts, if that's the thing you like to do. My favorite part of the Big Island is going through the actual Volcanoes National Park, and then the area around Hilo, just looking at all the historic stuff that's in Hilo. Now, a lot of people don't. If you're looking for history of the plantation days and the 19th century, Hilo is a very good place to look at that, just from the museums that are there.
Can we take that? Let's take these places one at a time, because I would love to break this down a little bit if we're going to spend a lot of time on the Big Island. Let's start with Kona. Is there a particular restaurant or a particular place while I'm visiting Kona that's like the must see that you could recommend to a large number of people?
Specifically, no. And the reason is because they rotate in and out all the time. Now, if somebody wants to come to Hawaii and learn about a local restaurant where all the locals go, then I would say, oh, yeah, you want to go to a Zippy's. Or if there's a specific food you want to eat, I'd say, well, you want to go to a fish shop and buy a poke bowl, and it'll be fresh fish. You know, it was swimming late last night, and now it's sitting in the counter ready to be turned into a poke bowl, whatever you want in your poke. And they rotate in and out, the popular restaurants. And so I don't dine at a high-end place. I'm not a foodie. And when I go to someplace like the Big Island, I want to eat the local food. And, you know, the joke is that Denny's on the mainland, maybe even Texarkana has a Denny's, I don't know.
We do.
There we go. Denny's is aspiring to be just as good as Zippy's here in Hawaii. And so that's why I recommend people should go to a Zippy's. Well, that's where you'll find, you know, the locals. That's where you find the breakfast bunch. That's where you'll find the brain trust of the, the retirees that sit around in the morning catching up. And I enjoy that environment. People go to Zippy's because they can eat food that's not necessarily on the menu on the mainland, oxtail soup, or they can figure out whatever their favorite local dish is and have a memory at Zippy's that you can get at many other resorts and many other prices. But for Zippy's, it's very convenient. So that's how I am for food, is go to Zippy's, go get a poke bowl, go try some kind of cuisine like that. For entertainment, I tend to show people a website where you can choose among the offers there. You know, somebody will tell me, oh, I want to come to Hawaii. And I'll say, great, tell me who you are. And if I find out that they like shopping, then that's going to be one bunch of suggestions like Kailua Kona or Waikiki. If I find out they spend most of their time hiking or getting dirty or camping or exploring trails and the back country, then, well, you got plenty of islands for that. You got Big Island, Kauai, Maui, that kind of thing. Or maybe you just want to lay on the beach. You can do that anywhere, and maybe you want to find cheap accommodations where the biggest thing you have to do is walk down to the beach each day.
Let's talk about Hilo, because you were talking about quiet and nature and hiking. Is there a specific trail that you like? Is there a specific spot that you like?
Absolutely. Hilo has a couple things that I really enjoy. One of them is the Akaka Falls, just going up to Akaka Falls and looking at the falls and that area around there, hiking around there. That's beautiful. There's also a downtown center in Hilo that's built around the waterfront. And it's an area that used to be quite an industrial area until the tsunami of 1946. And when that tsunami rolled through with very little warning, it became a mass casualty disaster. Essentially, it wiped out the industrial waterfront right around that harbor in Hilo. and everybody spent the next 10 years rebuilding. And just as they were getting to the point where it was back in action and running again in 1960, there was another tsunami that
Oh
wiped
no.
out that whole waterfront area all over again. And so there are memorials everywhere, and there's a vibrant history around there, a little further inland, but a vibrant history of what the waterfront used to look like and what happened for the tsunami. I'm married to a retired meteorologist and oceanographer, so we are very interested in phenomena like tsunami. And it's something that you learn to live with in the islands, so we enjoy learning about what's been going on in the past there. One of my friends, in fact, he's in his 70s now, but he actually participated in the 1960 tsunami because his mother was 6 months pregnant, and the two of them got washed out to sea and brought back in. So that's
Oh my God.
Wow.
everything worked out fine. Everybody's fine. Everybody's healthy. You know, he was born on
Rode a
time,
wave.
and you know, everybody jokes that the way he is today, well, we couldn't help it. The tsunami couldn't even take care of that. But the whole point is that these stories are everywhere. And by slowing down and taking the time to wander through the streets of Hilo, to go read all those plaques in the sidewalk or on the storefronts, to sit in a local cafe, you start hearing these things and seeing what's going on around you. You don't get experience if it's 48 hours in one island and 48 hours in the other island.
Got it.
Just describe the waterfall to me, by the way. Is it a straight down tall drop, or is it cascading over rocks?
Yep, straight over the top, rocks at the top, down into a great big pool at the bottom. We recommend you do not jump. You know, it's for display purposes only. There's plenty of other places on the island to go over the side and get wet. But it's a natural park. It's a very beautiful area, and it's relatively unspoiled. And it's just nice to go up there and wander around.
And then, so I know when I was there, we did the Jurassic Park Jeep tour. We saw animals.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what kind of cool? Oh, and Pearl Harbor. So, are there like? I guess we talked about bucket list before. These are kind of some must see, like pop culture-y kind of things.
And see, what I'm hearing now is that you're the kind of person who likes to see locations where notable events have happened. Like, oh my gosh, Jurassic
Yeah.
Park was filmed right here. Yeah, where are the raptors? Well, yeah, but it's interesting to see how Kualoa Ranch has made itself into an attraction that can handle that kind of thing. Ironically, a lot of Jurassic Park was filmed over on Kauai. I don't know if you've heard this story, but
Oh.
the storm scene in the movie, the first one, Jurassic Park, where all the rain and wind and it's dark and all that was filmed on Kauai during what turned out to be Hurricane Iniki. And nobody expected that. You know, Spielberg and the crew had gone back to the hotel because they were done for the day. And as the weather got worse and worse and worse, somebody finally said, you know, we really should be rolling for this. And sure
Let's
enough,
go
they had
outside.
enough power. They had enough generator. Yeah, they went outside and the raw footage they got. But you'll see that kind of story at Kualoa, and they'll talk about it, and they'll talk about all the other movies that have been filmed there and the people who've been through there. Hawaii is a very big tax incentive program to bring productions here from the mainland, from all over the world. So we're not quite up there like New Zealand with the Hobbit movie or the Rings trilogy, but we try to do that kind of incentive to bring more productions, more revenue to the islands. I have a big military audience, and if they're planning on coming to Oahu, they don't want to hear about the neighbor islands. They want to hear about Pearl Harbor. And I tell people, this is a little known fact, but there are actually 4 main attractions in Pearl Harbor. There's the Arizona Memorial, the Missouri Memorial, the ship USS Missouri. There's the Pacific Aviation Museum on Ford Island, just a half a mile away from the Missouri Memorial. And then, of course, there's my favorite, the Pacific Fleet Submarine Museum. I could spend 2 or 3 days at the Submarine Museum all by myself. And the sad fact is that much of the gear that I used in the 80s and 90s is now in the museum to look at.
Oh,
I should
Full
do something
circle.
with my estate plan. You know, yeah, maybe they'll embalm me and set me up in a corner on someday. I hope they wait till I'm dead. The other attractions in the Pearl Harbor area are things that could occupy an entire day. If you're a history buff with World War II and you go to the Arizona Memorial, it's a very meaningful experience. And there's a couple of museums in there. I find it actually kind of intense after hearing all the stories. And we've been here since the 90s. We used to have Pearl Harbor survivors who would sit outside of the bookstore and just pass the time with visitors. They talk
Oh,
about their experiences, and they talk about how that felt and how it feels and so forth. And the Missouri Memorial, I was still on active duty when the Missouri was towed up the channel into Pearl Harbor. And so there's all those stories.
cool.
The movie Pearl Harbor was filmed while I was on active duty. And again, if you go around the island, the Ford Island in the center of Pearl Harbor, you can see all that history there and see all the plaques and all the demonstrations and exhibits. The Missouri is probably the best open air museum at showing all that. But for aviators, over in the parking lot of the Pacific Aviation Museum, there's probably 60 or 70 aircraft in various stages of rehabilitation and restoration. And once again, my spouse and I go there and say, "Hey, look, that was the hot new aircraft in 1980, and so were we." But inside the museum, they do a great job of bringing World War II and all the history from then till now back to life. And we've seen that museum through the eyes of our 6-year-old granddaughter, who loves the flight simulators. And the flight simulators are actually full motion. If you're susceptible to motion sickness, you can certainly get a little queasy in them, but it gives you a good feeling for what it's like to fly an aircraft, not just sitting in front of a video screen.
Oh,
With our granddaughter, the joke is one day she's going to come home and tell her parents, "Mom, Dad, I'm going to join the Space Force." But on the other hand, she has a wonderful time every time she goes into the museum, and she's there, I'd say 2-3 times a month, just because we're looking for something to do with her. Well, that's the thing she really enjoys doing. So
curious.
buy the membership, spend all the time there you want, explore. Exactly.
So then, do I need a car to come see those things, or is it like a central place where they do tours and they pick you up?
Yes to both, and
Okay.
you can rent a car. It's easiest to rent a car on Oahu, and you
Okay.
can also do plenty of Uber and ride sharing. That's all over the islands, and that's very popular. But you also can find a shuttle that'll pick you up in Waikiki, for example, and take you out to the Arizona Memorial and give you the Pearl Harbor bus tour if you want, or you can have them drop you off at the Arizona Memorial in the morning and catch a shuttle later on. We live in central Oahu, and there's a shopping center here that's called Waikele, and it's a smaller version of the main Waikiki drive of luxury outlets. Waikele has a fleet of shuttles that they send down to Waikiki to peel off all the visitors there and send them out here to central Oahu where it's less crowded. It's free, and the shopping prices are better. And so we have ways of getting visitors. And we want to make it frictionless for a visitor to get to where they need to be. And
Well, that's
maybe you'll look at living in a resort area too. I mean, if you're up on the North Shore, you're probably going to rent something for a week or two, and you probably are going to spend most of your time walking around Haleiwa, and maybe an Uber, but not necessarily. And I can tell you also, if you go to Maui and you're on the west side of Maui in Kahului, not only is there a nice car rental near the airport there, but the business next door, the surf shop next door, will rent you the roof rack for the car that you just rented, so that you can put your longboard on the roof rack and drive around with that.
I want to spend the vast majority of our time on the Big Island because you told us if you're going once,
Absolutely.
that's probably the first place to go. But here at the halfway point, man, we're going to speed through a quick tour of at least see if we can get Kauai, Maui, and Oahu in before we say goodbye. But here at the halfway point, Crystal, we got some good news, bad news. The good news is that we have broken through on this competition to find out where you are around the world. The bad news is, as we record, we just released that episode yesterday, and we have a new quarter, which means all of our, I know what you're doing. Everybody knows that the clock reset on the second quarter, and you were waiting for that to drop to see what happened. And now everybody knows, Crystal. What country are you in?
I am in Japan somewhere.
You are somewhere in Japan. So here's what you do, adventurers. The first thing you do, you call in. And how do people call in to find out where you're at?
You head to stackingadventures.com/mystory, and you can record up to 5 minutes of your educated guess of where I am. You ask a question, a yes or no question is your first question, and then you bring it home with your second. That's your pinpoint.
Like a good question to ask. Are you in the northern half or are you in the southern half of, and then after the yes, no, then you make your guess, but nobody's done that. So there's a free tip, adventures, but it's stackingadventures.com/my story. And also we want to hear about your adventures in Hawaii or any of the places that we've gone, or maybe a new place that you're thinking about heading to or that you recently went to. But it's pretty exciting. All right. We've got, that coming next episode. Then bring the guesses on, everybody. First come, first serve, and we'll see who's going to win the Emerald Cruise Line's backpack. Very exciting. And, who's going to take home this prize. So we'll be back with more from Hawaii in just a minute. All right. Now I know you said that we should only go to one island, but we're about to speed through 3 in about 25 minutes, Doug. So
we're going to speed.
But it sounds like if there's a lot to do on the big island, like Kauai sounds like the opposite, like this whole slow down vibe, like the complete opposite of the big island. Would that be true?
That would be true. Again, hiking and going out on the water, whether that's a day cruise or a dinner cruise or a whale watching cruise, Kauai is very well set up for that. The other islands are too, but I think Kauai has some unique aspects in the way they do it. Kauai has a very interesting tour through an old plantation on an inner tube, and you're going through an irrigation channel on the plantation. And as you're tubing through this irrigation ditch, you're learning more about the history of the plantation and how it was set up. And frankly, you're basically wearing surf shorts and a rash guard, sitting in an air tube and working your way through a tunnel. Most of it is actually covered tunnel through there to learn how the irrigation work and where all the places are. So that's kind of, I enjoyed that visit, and there's no waterfalls there. Then there is the Nepali coast on the Garden Isle on Kauai, and that is a hiking area that is overnight, largely inaccessible to vehicles. If you want to really get back to nature, Kauai is a place to do it. There's also, ironically, up on the north shore of Kauai, along not too far away from the Nepali, is the two towns of Hanalei and Princeville. And Princeville is known for luxurious resorts and nice beaches, and you really don't have to expend any effort at all to have a lovely time there. You hardly have to move at all. They will bring everything to you in your chair on the sand. Hanalei I enjoy also because it's got a nice surf spot and more nice hiking and more nice places to visit, good restaurants, places where locals have been going for years. By the way, you asked for a restaurant recommendation in Kailua Kona, and I should have mentioned that any of these places you go to, if you're in a resort, of course they want you to eat the resort food, but you can also go talk to the concierge desk and say, what's the best place this month for, eat foodies or classic fusion cuisine or locals. Now, if you can get an answer like Zippy's, well, that's probably a good recommendation, but they know who's got the latest and greatest on the neighborhood and for your dining pleasure. The other part of Kauai that I enjoy down on the south shore near Lihue is the area around Poipu and Kapa'a. And again, lots of nice vacation rentals down there. It's a very easy place to go to the beach and very kid friendly, very snorkel friendly for people who maybe don't have the strongest swimming skills, and very easy to go out there and paddle around and see fish and wildlife. So there's plenty to enjoy for an entire week on Kauai. We at one point, our last trip on Kauai, found ourselves at the Kauai Flower Show. Now, ooh. I wouldn't necessarily come on a nationally recognized podcast recommending that people go to the Kauai Flower Show, but if that's who you are, you will see incredible examples of orchids and other plants that will inspire you maybe for whatever greenery works in your neighborhood. We came back from there to Oahu trying to replicate some of the stuff we saw at this market.
I just want to go back to the fact that you can also, Crystal, tell that Nords is a finance guy because he just described to us how romantically involved he got with tubing down an irrigation ditch. Like he tubes down a ditch and it's a vacation highlight. Do you know how much time it took him to convince his daughter and his grandkids that this was going to be?
Oh. We're going to love this.
I should do this. I should do this in Texarkana after a rain. just tell people, no, this is really fun. We're going to go down the ditch in front of my house and it'll be great. No,
I don't know if this is a comedy routine that they come up with at this attraction or if it's standard, but on the drive over to the headwaters of the irrigation ditch with the truck of inner tubes following us, the tour guides told us that they wanted to help us have better descriptions on our social media. And so instead of, gosh, this irrigation ditch is cold, you used words like refreshing, invigorating.
Oh,
I went for heart stopping. I was told that probably wouldn't work. But,
heart stopping.
it is, you do get out in nature, you do get a little uncomfortable in a good way, and it's an enjoyable experience. But now you know how to describe it on Yelp or on TripAdvisor.
You had described originally, though, on Kauai was the wettest place. And you know, I think of Hawaii, I think, okay, you got an ocean right there. That's pretty wet. What do you mean by wettest place when you talk about Mount? I'm not going to be able to say the word Mount.
Waialeale. Everybody says it that way.
Waialeale.
Waialeale, yes. The mountain, the rain clouds, as the trade winds blow, they pick up a moisture over the ocean, and then they encounter this very steep mountain, and it drives the trade wind straight up the side of the mountain, and it gets colder, can't hold as much moisture anymore, and it drops the rain right there.
It just rains and rains and rains here.
Exactly. And some of it, for example, there's a section near Hilo where it rains every day of the year almost, and it rains between 3:30 and 4:30 almost every day of the year. And Waialeale is more like it's not raining for 1 or 2 hours a day. That's your chance to get out there and go hiking. And we have the same behavior on Oahu. The windward side of Oahu up by Kailua gets a ton of rain just from the way that the mountains attract the crowds and push them up over the mountains. And all the rain lands on Kailua side. And by the time you get to the other side of the Ko'olaus and you're in central Oahu, you hardly get any rain at all here comparatively. And on the leeward side of Oahu, all the way out in Nanakuli, Waianae, down in Kapolei, it's a desert environment down there because by that point all the water's gone.
Wow, that's so wild.
The joke is, if you don't like the weather where you're at on the island, just walk 10 minutes or wait a half an hour, and we'll have something different.
Well, that's what I was thinking. It's just so fascinating to see all these different weather patterns and all these different ecological zones around the area. That's
environmental microclimates. Exactly.
Yeah. Let's talk about Maui, because I know that's a tougher conversation right now.
Maui, there's still plenty to see and do. In fact, Maui would like you to come visit Maui and use your time enjoying all the things that are set up for visitors in Maui right now. Of course, you're going to want to avoid disaster tourism in Lahaina. There is nothing to see in Lahaina. Literally, it's all on the media if you want to see that kind of stuff in Lahaina. But otherwise, you're causing traffic and going through parts of Lahaina that they're busy trying to move on with their lives and rebuild. So, there's no reason to go to Lahaina unless some attraction in Lahaina wants you to come there and eat their food or enjoy their time at their bar. However, there's plenty of other places to see things and do things on Maui. And although you're avoiding Lahaina, you're still going to find lots to do in Kapalua or Kahului or over by Ka'anapali, all the big towns that you read about and that many mainland visitors are still learning to pronounce. And that's, for example, in central Maui at Ma'alaea, the Oceanarium is a fantastic experience. And that's one where I would take an inter-island flight just to spend an afternoon at the Oceanarium and come back to Oahu for dinner. It's that good. It's that good. There's also the tallest, it's a mountain on Maui, Haleakala. The Haleakala crater, the visitor center of the crater itself is at 10,000 feet of elevation. And when I go up there, I actually have to deal with 24 hours of altitude sickness. But there's a hiking trail up at 10,000 feet, and you can go down into the crater. Now, every step you take down into the crater is 2 steps that you're going to have to take coming back up out of the crater. But it's worth going up to that area, looking around the visitor center up there, going down to the crater just to see the silver swords, the ecosystem down there, the critters that have evolved in that crater, in that tiny little environment all by themselves and been isolated or cut off from everything else going on the island, let alone the rest of the world. So there are unique plants and animals running around that crater. Haleakala also has the distinction of being one of the most quiet places in the world. They've actually gone around with microphones and recording gear and figured it all out. And it's very quiet in the crater just by the fact that you're inside a volcanic caldera. And they have 3 cabins inside the crater. This was built by the National Conservative, what do they call it, the NCCC, the program during the Great Depression to employ people. 3 cabins were built inside the crater in the 1930s that are still in use today. Now, it's very difficult to actually get that trip down into the crater where you can stay in a cabin overnight. We were fortunate enough that that same friend who had the tsunami is also a resident of Maui now. He managed to add us to his group for 2 separate trips down there. This was 10, 12 years ago. And it was amazing.
Wow.
Today, I wouldn't go down there just because if I did go down there and turn an ankle, they'd have to evacuate me on the back of a horse. But getting a chance to go down into the crater, look around for an afternoon, or if you get to visit with a group and spend a night in a cabin there, that's as back to nature as you can get in Haleakala.
2 questions about.
I haven't even talked about the drive to Hana yet. I'm probably the only Hawaii resident who has never gone on the road to Hana, just because the fastest you can go on the road to Hana is as fast as the slowest driver who is currently in front of you on the road to Hana.
And that's fingernails on a chalkboard, I'm assuming.
Yes, for me.
Yes.
You don't have the patience for it.
Yeah, we have a drive north of us that's not nearly as pretty, but through the Ouachita Mountains, and I always end up behind a semi, and it just
and you got to focus on that because you don't want to crawl up their tailpipe and then drive right off the side of the road into the canyon, right? So yeah,
I can't imagine. I do want to ask, because it's a national park, I want to ask, Cheryl, my spouse, trying to do all the national parks. Is this one really crowded? Like, is this a get there in the morning national park, or is this not a ton of traffic national park? And then second question is, I got to imagine some of this hiking you're talking about, ranger-led activities pretty frequently.
There are ranger tours for that, both in Kilauea and Volcanoes National Park and in Haleakala. I mean, let me be clear, I'm talking about 2 separate islands, but
yes. 2 different parks.
Yes. And when you're in Haleakala, there are plenty of ranger tours that will take you around and show you what's going on. The fantastic visitor center with all the videos, all the old photos, all the biology, all the environmental stuff going on there. So a lot of it can be self-guided if that's what you want to do. There's a phenomenon, and again, it's a discussion of whether this is something worth doing or whether it's over tourism and impact fees and being a good visitor. But one of the popular activities is getting up to Haleakala to see the sunrise. And everybody imagines, I'm going to drive my car up there and get there just as the sun begins to peak above. No, that's not what happens. Instead, a bus picks you up at your hotel, and there's probably about 4 of those buses, and they all drive up to the Haleakala parking lot. And because these are big diesel buses, they don't want to shut off their engines at that altitude because they might not get them started again. So they sit there in a parking lot with 4 or 5 buses idling in the background while you're over at the edge of the overlook, looking to the east, hoping that the cloud layer is not too much to show a good sunrise. And eventually the spiritual thing happens, the sun rises, but it's not the experience that you thought you were going to have. I also should have mentioned that you usually get on the bus about 3:30 in the morning to get up to the top of Haleakala. Yeah, I can see Joe's out already. So there are things like that that will sound quite intriguing when you first, and so my answer to that is first find out what kind of visitor you are, if that's something you're willing to invest the time and the effort to do, and maybe you don't need to do it up at Haleakala with 300 of your closest friends in the early morning hours. Maybe this is something you can just go down on the east side and look at on the beach, or go over to the west side and look at on the sunset.
Well, that sounds way more Crystal Speed, with a drink with an umbrella in it, right, Hammond?
Yes, several.
Well, that is one way to do it. Another way to do it is to get on a catamaran or any sailing vessel and go out from November through February, which is peak whale watching season, Maui and Kauai in particular. And because you're out there on a sailing vessel, you're not making a lot of noise in the water, and the whales are much more likely to be nearby or easier to see when you're not looking at them from the deck of a bigger vessel. Now, if you want something that's more stable, you're going to be on a bigger ship, on a bigger boat, and it's going to have an engine and then a diesel engine and all that. And that gets a little more complicated, but it's a smoother ride than a catamaran.
That was going
What's
to be mine
amazing?
because you talked about November through December. We had just happened to be there in October, and they had a really big Halloween parade. Like, are there different, like, better times to go, like, for the partying, whale watching?
The parade you're referring to might have been the one in Maui and Lahaina. So it's going to be a while before we see that one again. I'm sure there's
Ah,
something on a holiday going on in Kailua Kona on Big Island, or maybe through Kahului on Maui instead of Lahaina. I don't
mhm.
know off the top of my head about any of that event on Kauai. There's always something going on Oahu near the holidays for things like that.
Cool.
One of the best ways to do that is to look at the visitor brochures that you see in the airports or online. For example, this week Oahu, or this week Hawaii, or this week Maui. That'll tell you what the calendar has on it for various events. If you're a surfer, we wouldn't even be talking about that. You'd already have memorized the competition schedule up in the North Shore of Oahu. And you'd already know where you wanted to go and who you wanted to see.
Cool.
What amazed me was when we were in Alaska and we were out on a whale watching ship, they were telling us that the whales that we were seeing now were the last whales of the season, and they were headed to Hawaii. Like, you're seeing the same whales that
Oh,
you'll see in Alaska, and just a wild migration pattern that's really, really cool. I thought that was fascinating. We need to move
It's a
on
lot
to
easier to find food up there, but it's a lot easier to give birth down here where it's warmer.
and that's the trade-off, right? That's what they
Yeah.
do. I think. Yeah.
huh.
Um, let's talk about Oahu, because what most people think Hawaii is, like, they immediately think of Oahu,
Mhm.
but you ranked it fourth in your list of places to go.
And not only that, but if you live on Oahu, you probably have an attitude of, oh, I don't go to Waikiki, which is mistaken. But
Mhm.
it's because mostly you get used to living your life in your area of your neighborhood, of the things you do, of the work you do. And so if you're living on the island, the things to do in Waikiki are the things to do with nice restaurants. Maybe you're down there for the bars, the nightlife, or live music. Waikiki is full of live music that is every bit as good as what you would find in a recording studio on the mainland. And it's done by
Ooh.
people who live, and many of them have day jobs on Oahu, but enjoy playing and enjoy performing. And they just don't want to leave the islands to go to some place like Los Angeles, for example,
Mhm.
or Nashville to start a music career if they can do it by playing live on Oahu and enjoying this with family and friends.
Pictures
So
make it seem like Waikiki's like Times Square, but with better weather.
oh yeah, you could definitely form that opinion, and everybody's more polite and cheerful to be around too.
Right.
But
They're very
it's
nice.
it's the aloha spirit.
Right.
But again, it is crowded, and it has to do with what you want to see and do. And so, if you're looking for a luxury resort hotel, Waikiki is full of that. And if you're looking for a place where you can rent a short-term rental for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, again, Waikiki is full of places to do that. And it's an easy place to start with whatever else you want to try. For example, there's a Zippy's down in Honolulu, but there's also an easy hike up to Diamond Head Crater that you can take to just go look around the island and enjoy the views without having to invest an entire afternoon or hike 10 miles to get there to see that site. So it's very convenient to bring everybody to Honolulu International Airport and straight down to Waikiki for that kind of vacation. Very, very affordable. And so that's why it's because our marketing is working, right? There's more money marketing Waikiki, I would say, than probably any other place in the islands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the islands that you won't see.
Mhm.
Uh, Molokai and Lanai.
Molokai, Lanai, both of those islands are mostly residential. In fact, there aren't enough jobs on either of those islands, and many people commute from Lanai or Molokai to Maui for their day
Mhm.
job. Of course, now with remote work, it's probably much more sustainable to live and work on Molokai or Lanai. I wouldn't know the details on that very well, but I'm sure people are spending less time commuting to Maui. There's a concern on Lanai because 98% of the island is owned by Larry Ellison, the CEO of Oracle.
Oh.
that island is reverting to a less benign kind of ownership management, and that doesn't encourage tourism at all. However, there are nice resorts over there, are a couple of nice places to go for lunch. But the way I hear about Lanai is that people will go over there for a day trip from Maui. Molokai at one point was actually trying to bring in cruise vessels to Kunakakai. And so you take an island that's got 7,000 residents and one intersection with traffic lights.
Oh, no.
And
oh,
you
no.
see where this is going.
Ouch.
Oh, no.
Ouch.
That lasted for about one season and ended badly. And so now Molokai has not said Maui go home, but Molokai has said, hey, we will do some limited tourism here, but we really aren't interested in it. And many of the places on Molokai that used to be areas that were visitor attractions have struggled to stay in business. So yes, you can go to Lanai. Yes, you can go to Molokai. It's just there's not a lot to do there. If you're a surfer, you're going to go there to explore surf breaks that don't have a lot of people on them. But boy, if you're a surfer, you'd better understand Hawaii culture and be respectful of the locals who already would like to surf there. I'm not saying anybody's going to be hostile, but if you take a California surfer attitude into Molokai, you're going to have a very disappointing experience. Those are islands you can still get to that are probably not on your top 4 islands. There is an island that is actually closed, and that is the island of Ni'ihau. Ni'ihau is owned by a family, the Robinsons. The Robinsons bought it back in the 1840s from what at that time was the Kingdom of Hawaii. Well, he felt like he was unloading a white elephant on a couple of clueless mainlanders, and he was right. And so they've owned that island and tried to figure out what to do with it now for 160 years. Wow. And are still working that way. But Ni'ihau is where it's sort of like the repository of Hawaiian culture. For example, the primary language on Ni'ihau is Hawaiian language. Wow. And the people that are living on Ni'ihau will practice traditional crafts, traditional arts. I mean, there's a certain amount of communicating back and forth between Kauai and Ni'ihau, or between Ni'ihau and Oahu to visit Bishop Museum, where cultural exhibits are, and where also other craftsmen are practicing their traditional crafts. But on Ni'ihau, that is the focus. That's your lifestyle. You are going to Ni'ihau to live as if it was the way Hawaii used to be, and would ideally always be, as a place where we archive and preserve and propagate the culture. And for example, just a few years ago now, maybe 10, 15 years ago, University of Hawaii finally came up with a doctorate degree program in Hawaiian studies, literally in the Hawaiian language.
Wow.
And people show up. Well, the first time they did that, the graduates, the 2 doctoral candidates, showed up in Malo to pick up their certificates. I mean, traditional Hawaiian attire, to pick up their degrees and to point out that this is what they've been studying and this is what they're preserving. And for them, the permission to go to Ni'ihau and stay there, or to exchange information with people in Ni'ihau and just keep that fertilization going and that preservation of the culture going is something that is very jealously guarded here and very important here. We almost lost all this stuff. Do we have time for a story?
Yeah.
Yes.
We have a Polynesian voyaging canoe activity here on the island. You may have heard about Hokulea and Hikanalia, 2 of the vessels that navigate across the Pacific. And it got to the point now that in the 1970s, there was only one remaining navigator who used the ancient ways that the Polynesians used to get from all the way from Indonesia and the islands in that area all the way to eventually Hawaii in successive waves of migration. There's only one guy left who knew how to do that. Wow. And through efforts of the Polynesian Voyaging Society, they managed to sit down with this man and bring him on to a recreated Polynesian cruising ship, the Hokulea. And he taught a few more navigators. And now we had, 3 or 4 people. It's been 50 years. And since then, it's gone on and spread out all over Oahu and the neighbor islands. And Hokulea is now in its 3rd generation of training navigators. And when I say navigator, I don't mean like the kind of navigating I did in the U.S. Navy. This is figuring out where 50 or 60 different stars are and the constellation and when they rise and set, and how to look at the winds and the waves and other phenomena in the atmosphere to tell where you are. And this is a lifestyle. So one of the things that my spouse and I did last November is we went on a trip that has been on our bucket list for a while, and we went down to the North Island of New Zealand. And we got off the plane in Auckland and got set up in our Airbnb. And one of the first things we did was wander down to the waterfront in Auckland to see what was going on around the waterfront. And we walked by the Maritime Museum and turned the corner, and there was Hokulea. Now, they had a different experience getting from Oahu to New Zealand than my spouse and I had. But the point was that they were training a new generation of navigators, and that was their graduation exercises. Okay, here you are in Oahu. Let's see if you can find New Zealand. And they did.
Oh, that's crazy.
That's amazing.
They're actually still there. They're still voyaging around the New Zealand area, carrying on that tradition and training new crew members, not just from Hawaii, but from all over the Pacific.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
end of my story. Thank you for indulging me on that one, but that one's very precious. I used to navigate, but my experience navigating was a little different than what a Polynesian voyaging society has.
I could just imagine what a cool thing it would be, though, to turn that corner and there it is, and you had no idea.
We knew that Hokulea was away from Oahu. We did not know, and they had just pulled in like the week before, and they weren't even giving tours. They didn't want to give tours. They didn't want to show up. They had people that they would take around the islands for training. They knew who their local contacts were, and there's probably a couple of schools, and there's probably another voyaging society there. Those are the people they want to hang out with. Otherwise, they're in a Liberty port. They're in Auckland. They're going to go out and party. They're not going to sit on the Hokulea and give us tours of the Hokulea. So all we could do is go there and take pictures.
Also, in our prep, there was a plot twist that I did not see coming, which was you referenced a ninth island.
Oh, yes. It's, again, the islands are a place where you grow up and you want to spend your whole life here, but it's very difficult to afford to live on Oahu, let alone the neighbor islands. And so when the price of Hawaii living gets too high, you end up on the mainland. Maybe you went to the mainland for college. Maybe you went to the mainland for a better job. Whatever reason you're on the mainland, there are now more native Hawaiians living on the mainland than in the state of Hawaii. And one of the primary migrations of getting people to the ninth island is the Las Vegas area. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Hotel Cal in Las Vegas, but that actually organizes its casino and its cuisine and its restaurants because they have a very strong demographic of people visiting from Oahu, flying to Las Vegas to stay at the Cal, gamble,
That's cool.
visit around Las Vegas area, and then come back to Oahu.
That's cool. It's funny. I'm from, Detroit, and there's a casino downtown, the D, which is all a Detroit casino. So I feel the same way, Doug. I feel when I go there, I feel a little bit of home.
And imagine how hard it is to find Detroit people around you, people that grew up in Detroit. Well, that's the feeling. And it's serious business. The people that have left Oahu, that have left Hawaii for whatever reason, and now you're living in Las Vegas, if you did hula as a primary activity, as your main interest, not as your day job, but as your lifestyle, if you were somebody who spends all the time with hula halau in Hawaii, and now you're in Las Vegas, you're going to start a new halau there. And if that goes on for 25, 30 years, you're going to get a core of hula experience in Las Vegas that is every bit as competitive as any halau here on Oahu, and is just as cultural and just as good at it. And so again, there are more native Hawaiians living on the mainland, and Las Vegas is one of those areas where there's a very strong locals culture.
Yeah, I did not see that coming. I laughed. Ninth Island is Las Vegas.
You don't see that. You don't see that adadvertised. Come to Las Vegas for Hawaii culture.
For Hawaii,
but if you're here and you want to stop there on the way home,
What is you've lived there 37 years?
Yeah.
What still makes you stop and go, wow?
Things that are unusual that I see happening here that just confound me. We've had unusual weather in the last couple of weeks. The weather has been not as bad as a hurricane, but for weather just short of a hurricane, it's been the worst it's been in probably 25 years. Just from the volume of rainfall and the way the meteorological conditions set up, the mass of wetness that has risen up here out of the south and parked itself on top of Oahu. I mean, right now we've had our third week of rain. We've had a couple of weeks off in between, but we're in our third week of rain in the month. And just today alone, it's been almost 2 inches of rain. So that's been
One
unusual.
day.
I will share another story. My daughter, who lives on Oahu, she's back, and her spouse and our granddaughter. But my daughter, when she was growing up here, did not hear lightning or thunder until she was 8 years old. I mean, she lived that many years of her life here before a thunderstorm actually produced thunder and lightning. And since then, it's become more common, but it is still rare here on the islands, especially compared to the mainland, to hear thunder and lightning, to see the lightning and hear the thunder. And so that's another thing that makes me go, huh, when we do get that kind of event. Other than that, I guess it's because I've been here for so long, it's been hard to find things that make me go, huh. One thing that has happened in surfing world is that you're familiar with paddling out on a longboard, you're familiar with paddling out on a performance shortboard, you're probably even familiar with stand-up paddling, but you have probably not yet seen a hydrofoil board, and that's literally a short surfboard, only about 3-4 feet long, looks more like a boogie board, with a hydrofoil sticking down below it. And if you get that thing up to speed and the hydrofoil lifts you up out of the water, there's no more drag. And it has gotten to the point now where we have a core of people that are so experienced and skilled at surfing, it's called foil surfing, that I think before long, we're going to see a recreation of the Oahu to Molokai canoe race, only with foil surfers, because these things can get out to open ocean and they don't have to surf in front of the wave. They can surf literally in the open ocean if they can get the speed up and then figure out how to steer around. And we're getting enough experience with people that have been doing it for 10 or 15 years. I mean, these are the guys that were buying them 15 years ago and surfing every day on them, are probably capable of getting competitive and racing each other from here to Maui.
That's cool.
And safety vessels and escorts and everything else, just like the canoe races. But yeah, and that's where we are. That's the kind of thing that makes me go, huh.
Wow.
I'm fully loaded with longboard surfing and stand-up paddleboarding, but if I ever get bored, which is unlikely, if I ever find that I want to do something else, I know that hydrofoil is out there waiting for me. All I have to do is bring money and time to learn how to do it.
If you're an adventurer and you are somebody who's been with the military, Doug's been writing about the military for a long time, about being financially independent, about raising smart families. Great book with your daughter, Carol Pittner, recently, Doug. Where can people find you online?
I'm at Military Financial Independence. That's the name of my blog now, militaryfinancialindependence.com. I've got a lot of my material at the Military Wallet. That's the site that used to have a partnership between the Military Guide and the Military Wallet. So people that search for the Military Guide, they actually end up reading my posts on the Military Wallet now. You're familiar with 301 redirects, and that's why it works that way. We still talk about money savvy families at places like Camp FI and conferences, and we still when people visit, we still get together. For example, Choose FI's local chapter has a Choose FI Honolulu group here. We also have a Bogleheads chapter here now. So
oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
maybe we'll end up with a bad group there, a Benjamin's After Dark group. That would be fun.
We could try. It is feasible. It's going to take a while. It literally took us 15 years to get a Bogleheads chapter built up here. So don't feel like you have to get this done in a month.
No, I'm always surprised when we have another one somewhere around the country.
They tell you, yeah.
It did crack me up last time when I was just prepping for today, and I went to militaryfinancialindependence.com. And of course, Crystal, Doug's piece is 24 years of military retirement and surfing. So while today you had to go 8 minutes to hear the word surf, you only had to go 7 words into the blog, which is much more likely.
We should tune in for next week's episode, which is going to be titled Surfing in Hawaii. and then we can talk about it for the entire hour.
That will be it. He's already planting seeds, Adventures. He's already planted seeds. Man, thank you for being our guide today of
Yes.
Hawaii. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope.
Always happy to talk about aloha here with anybody who thinks they want to come on out, and they're welcome to contact me if they have questions. I get all these questions all the time. I have an entire discussion for military families who want to take advantage of the military benefits at recreation centers scattered around not just Oahu but all the islands.
It's so fabulous. You're such a great resource,
Yeah.
especially for military families who need the help, man. And it's out there. I always get frustrated when I see a military family. It's like, I don't know where to look. I'm like, well, there are some wonderful resources.
Yep.
Crystal, before we say goodbye, again, if people want to guess where in Japan you are,
Yeah. Head to stackingadventures.com/mystory. Super simple.
we have all of our great gear as well. You can help the show and buy gear that doesn't suck, which it's so easy to get roped into travel gear that just is absolutely horrible. I've done it. Crystal's done it. Based on the fact that Norris just laughed, he's done it too. You buy this stuff and you're like, what am I doing? So if you want to buy gear that's been tested by either us or our guest, where do you go to our curated shop?
Yep. stackingadventures.com/GOTD or Gear of the Day.
All right.
All right. She is Crystal.
And I'm Joe. He's Joe.
Wait a minute.
And he's Doug. We'll see you next time, Adventures. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening.